Molly Carroll, welcome to the Game Informer Show.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you. We've been fans of Chucklefish's stuff for a while, and it's one of those things where everything just kind of came together, at least from the outside perspective, within like the last couple of weeks of like, why we are talking about Chucklefish a lot, and we do not know too much about them. So who are you guys, and who are you? Give us the story.
Right. Well, Chucklefish is a independent game studio based in London. We came together in 2012. We were making a game called Starbound. Just sort of a bunch of people in their spare time, like over IRC, just kind of trying to make it work. We eventually had to crowdfund Starbound. So we did that. We kind of, over the course of developing it, amassed like kind of a big community through our developer blogs and through IRC and our forums and stuff like that. So crowdfunding went really well, and we were able to fund the rest of Starbound's development and put it through early access. Early access went really well. Eventually, we released Starbound a year ago in 2016. So it took quite a while.
What do you attribute that success to? I mean, you say every step of the way it went really well. Is it just communication with fans, or is there a certain amount of people were so hungry for, anything in the Minecraft vein, and Starbound was a great example of that?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think there was definitely part of the genre was a big part of it. I think communication was also pretty key because we did communicate a lot, and we were pretty open about what we were doing, and we wanted to make sure that people knew what we were up to all the time, just so they didn't forget about us.
Naturally. And how did you get involved then?
I got involved in a weird way. I was looking for a job in the games industry because I was just kind of doing odd jobs at the time. I wanted to get into community management. So I was kind of looking for a way to volunteer. And then I happened to follow Thierry, our CEO, Finn, on Twitter because he worked on Terraria. And he was looking for a voice actor to do some work for his new project. And so I kind of came on to do like some weird noises.
Like monster noises, or what type of stuff?
Just sort of like we were originally going to do kind of like almost like Animal Crossing, where you just kind of have this gibberish language.
And you have that on your resume, expert in Animal Crossingese.
I just had like a crappy microphone. And I had no background in this, but I was the first person to answer on Twitter, and I was just like, I'll do it. And so I ended up doing this. We never ended up using it, and we never ended up having that in Starbound. But I was like, kind of, by the way, do you need a community manager? And so I kind of just wormed my way in there that way.
And I have a stupid ear, but you're an American, right? And you moved over to England for Chucklefish?
Yeah, I've since moved over to London. I've been here for about 3 years now. But yeah, so I kind of just got into it that way. I started managing the forums, and then it kind of grew, and now I handle like our marketing and publishing and PR and that sort of thing.
Gotcha. And so this is what I envision. Tell me where my story is wrong. I imagine Starbound just did very well on Steam, especially upon release and through the early access process, even everything. Then everybody sits around and they say, all right, we have a lot of money. What do we do with all this money? Do get like on a big whiteboard? Are you like, all right, how about other developers make a Starbound sequel? Like, what were those meetings like about where do we go next?
Well, after we eventually finally finished Starbound, we kind of had a few meetings where we kind of all just like, there was this weird feeling of what do we do now? Like, we had a lot of stuff to do, obviously, but in terms of developing a game, which is what most of the company does, most of the company is in publishing, we were just sort of like, what do we do? And so we all started pitching games. We had some meetings where everybody was able to pitch. Sorry, there's a dog.
Okay, makes sense now.
We were all able to pitch ideas, and we kind of ended up going with the two ideas that we liked the best. We kind of chose a shorter term project, which ended up being Wargroove, and then we went for a sort of longer term, like a bigger project, which I can't really talk about.
And that's
but you
not.
might have seen some images on Twitter.
That's not Wayward Tide.
No, that was sort of a project that we while we were developing Starbound, we kind of had at one point wanted to have another team working on something else. And we kind of experimented with that for a while. We had another team working on that, and then in the end, everybody ended up working on Starbound. So that kind of fell by the wayside.
Gotcha. So the board.
I was trying to think of a really bad, like, wayward pun there, and I just.
It's all right. There's no place for puns on this podcast, please. So Wargroove, that's the game in the style of Advance Wars that was just at PAX, and it seemed like people really, really fell in love with it out there, and people were looking forward to playing it. And then the other game is the one that Finn teased on Twitter, which is the Harry Potter meets Stardew Valley.
Yes.
Okay, and that's the summary. But the weird part is, did you start working on it before you were ever connected to Stardew Valley then?
We've been speaking to Eric actually about Stardew Valley since I think 2012.
Oh, wow.
So it's been a long time because Stardew Valley was on Steam Greenlight and Finn kind of came across it and he was really interested in it and he reached out to Eric, I believe, and I think Eric ended up sending us a build of the game, and then Finn was playing it and we were all kind of really excited about it because. I was excited about it because I'm a really big fan of like Harvest Moon and Rune Factory and games like that. And so we kind of agreed, we'll help you out in whatever way that you need help with marketing and community building and stuff like that. And then he basically went away for a few years and kept making the game. And we almost didn't really hear from him that much. And then it was like, cool, I think the game is just about done now. And so then we started to plan for its release. And since then, we've kind of become a lot more involved with, since Concern Date, the creator of Stardew Valley is just one person, Eric Baroni. That kind of became, we've kind of taken on working with porting houses, localization, stuff like that, developing the multiplayer part of the game. So it's become a lot more than just typical like marketing and stuff like that.
Right. It's a little more involved than just being a basic publisher, but you offered him a generous deal. I heard recently in Jason Schreier's book, it was 10% of the profits. And he's like, yeah, cool. Let's do it.
I mean, we kind of got into publishing. I don't want to say by accident. It was not really, we started out we had built this community and we felt like we had some reach and we had some influence within that community, and we felt like it was we could help other developers by reaching our own community and with some of the reach that we had on social media and stuff like that. And so we first ended up helping out a developer called Giddy Trunk on a game called Wanderlust Rebirth, and this was before Steam Greenlight, I believe, and they were not able to get their game on Steam for quite a while. And so we helped them get their game on Steam when that was a thing that was still quite difficult to do and was still a thing that was like, there was a lot of inherent value in just being on Steam, whereas now it's more of a flooded marketplace, and that might not help you as much. And then it just kind of grew from there to where we were kind of talking to developers like Eric on Stardew and talking about how we could help other developers. And it's kind of grown from there. Now we have kind of a larger portfolio of games that we've helped in more and more ways as we've grown as developers and as a studio, and we've kind of made more contacts and we have more resources available to us.
How fierce is that competition out there to find the next big indie hit? I'd imagine even with the pedigree of saying like, oh, Starbound, and now we publish Stardew Valley, people will be attracted towards you guys. But is it cutthroat out there between you guys and, I don't know, the equivalent scale like a Devolver or even Sony or Microsoft if they're trying to find the next great indie sensation? Do you feel like, are you walking out of these indie developers' houses as Microsoft is walking in?
It's not really how we've operated it as such. It's more like people get in touch with us a lot of the time. I would say the vast majority of people are reaching out to us rather than us reaching out to them. And so we'll speak to developers when we think that their game is something that would kind of fit into our catalog, really, or the would appeal to the audience that we've built. And then we kind of speak to them about what they need, and we talk about whether we can deliver that for them, and if we would be the right choice for them. And really, if we're not, then we don't want them to go with us. We would rather say like, hey, you should, go to like Devolver, go to another publisher. Just often, like we're quite small. We're 17 people total, and our publishing team is quite small. It's mostly me. So we don't want to take on more than we can handle anyway.
And so that's the distinction, is if they're just asking too much, then you have to realize like we're here for like just surface level support.
Sometimes if someone needs funding, that's more than we can really provide, if it's kind of above the level that we are comfortable with, or even if we just have a lot of projects that are coming out at that time or around that time, or we have a lot on our plates otherwise, then we'll say, no, we're not really the right choice.
But is the overall message within the studio like, hey, this publishing thing is taking off, we could see this as even the main source of revenue or the main business moving into the future?
I think we're still quite focused on development. Like, I think the majority of the company is we still just kind of want to keep making games. We also want to use the resources that we have to help other games succeed, because we just kind of like that we have the ability to support other developers. But I don't think that that's kind of where we're going with it. We're not sort of trying to be as competitive.
Yeah.
Sorry about the dog.
That's right. We love dogs on the podcast. It makes it more lively. So is the basic, like, you get it, your inbox is just filled with pitches from other developers, I'd imagine, and developers wanting to maybe work with you guys. Is it just an easy distinction of if it's pixel art, then it's okay. Otherwise, I'm not even going to look at it. Get it out of here.
Not really. We have happened to sort of just develop and publish pixel art games. It's kind of what we like the most, I think. But I think that it definitely wouldn't be out of the question to publish like a 3D game, or like a sort of, I could see us publishing something that's like cute and low poly, I don't think that we would publish, something that looks like Call of Duty. I don't think we're going to publish any first-person shooters. I could be wrong.
I heard Baroni's next game is really a Call of Duty clone, so it's going to be fantastic. Yeah, so, I mean, what do you think about just this trend of smaller developers getting into publishing? Is there any downside that you guys have encountered, or has it worked out pretty well for you guys?
I think it's worked out pretty well so far. I think it's definitely been a learning experience, because we went into it without really having done it before. We had success with our own games, and we've kind of tried to use that to inform what we do to help other games. I think that it's really cool that people who are able to help and to get into publishing are doing it. People who are in a position to offer marketing support or offer exposure to a larger audience are doing that, and that's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, you say you've learned a lot. What's the biggest lesson or the most unexpected lesson you've learned along the way trying to get these games out the door?
There's so many things involved in, like, especially when because we recently started publishing games on console for the first time, and we started with Stardew Valley, and it's great to be on console, and it's worked out really well, but it's really hard. It's so much harder than publishing a game on PC. There's so much that you don't even consider, and there's so much that small indie studios who have never done this before would never consider, with regards to like timing and ratings, and there's so much project management involved in that. And I think that when small teams sort of start to get into publishing on consoles, putting their game on consoles, they are not expecting how difficult it will be. It's how many different aspects of like paperwork and ratings and all of the different weird ways that ratings work in different countries, and like if you can't, like you're gonna be 18 plus in Russia if there are gay characters in your game, and it's just like there's a lot. It's a lot.
What does that look like for you? Is that just a full inbox, or does it just mean a bunch of meetings, or do you have like a PDF document that's like do this step, then this step, then this step?
I think we've got it down now. It's always it's a lot of sort of coordinating with other people. It's a lot of meetings. It's a lot of it's a lot of communication, and it's a lot of considerations that you have to take into account, and you have to plan very sort of rigorously, which is not something that I think all indie developers are used to doing when it comes to publishing on PC. Because it can be kind of like, oh, well, we're on PC. Let's just push a patch on Steam to fix this issue. It's not. It's much more complicated when you kind of get onto consoles and things like that.
Yeah, just talking about the complication, you were the perfect person to ask, because just on last week's podcast, we discussed a lot about Nintendo's push with the Switch and indies and confusing messaging. And so from your guys' perspective, how did that whole thing happen with Stardew Valley and Nintendo saying multiplayer was coming first to consoles on the Switch? How does that chain of command get confused?
I don't think it was confused as much as it was. Nintendo Switch is the first console that is getting multiplayer, and it's coming to PC first with beta on Steam, because that is kind of the easiest route for us to kind of see how it's working. I don't think it was confused messaging as much as it was kind of vague, maybe.
Right. What are those discussions like? Are this just a matter of Nintendo saying, hey, we'd love to have some exclusive, and you guys say, yeah, we can promise you first on Switch?
No, it wasn't. I don't think anybody was misinformed in that conversation. It was more just like, I think the language was more, it'll be the first console to have the game the multiplayer, and then people kind of read into it as like it's gonna have multiplayer on the Switch first, and then everything else later. But yeah, it was a priority for us to not, because Eric had talked about multiplayer to PC players so long ago, and it was something that was promised as a feature in the game. It wouldn't have seemed fair for us to release it on a console first, and PC later, and it also kind of made less sense logistically for us. So yeah.
Gotcha. So helping to shepherd just the overall Stardew Valley phenomenon, and I don't mean to discredit Starbound's phenomenal success, but Stardew Valley, it had a huge, wide impact on consoles and whatnot. And I'm just wondering, what was the weirdest part of trying to steer that ship? Were you just getting bizarre offers left and right coming through you guys instead of going straight to Baroni?
I mean, we get emails all the time, sort of on behalf of sort of reaching out about Stardew Valley. I think it's been kind of a crazy ride ever since Stardew Valley came out. The amount of offers in our inbox and sort of emails, we kind of just try, and because he is one person and now he has this like massive success, I think we kind of try and just push the right things towards him and say, like, if you're interested in this, look, but obviously try and filter out some of the less interesting offers.
Right. Because he still owns.
There's only so much that he can look at.
Yeah, and he still owns the IP for Stardew Valley completely, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so anything when it comes to weird rights issues, it would go straight to him.
Yeah, everything ultimately is down to Eric's approval.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, have you gotten Hollywood pitches for Stardew Valley adaptation?
I don't think so.
Really?
I don't think we have.
Okay.
Like, I'm thinking about it as if I wouldn't have remembered that, but I'm pretty sure I would have remembered that.
Are there offers to like buy it completely? Do you get emails from the Sonys of the world saying, we just would like to buy this IP right now?
I think our business manager might probably get something like that, but I haven't gotten any. Okay. I get a lot of emails about Stardew Valley, but they're mostly sort of press. And
people asking for the 1000th time when it's coming out on Switch?
Yeah, and people asking for review codes still.
Okay, naturally. What can you say about when it's coming out on Switch? Is there any broad window you can give?
This year, it's I can't confirm a date yet. It's quite close. I need to confirm the date, with Eric and with Nintendo first.
Okay, but closer than we think.
It depends on what you think.
I'm thinking like tomorrow, Molly, frankly.
It's not coming out tomorrow.
Okay, hang on, let me write this down. Not coming out tomorrow. Got it.
If it was, then I would be really worried because I haven't sent out any review kits yet, and that's
I'm curious how the conversations flow between talking about, the Harry Potter meets Stardew Valley vague pitch that you guys are working on and Eric Baroni and Stardew Valley. Is there any overlap there? Does Eric consult on that, or is it completely separate in your mind? Because it's confusing, I think, when the first thing you say about this game is, "Oh, it's kind of like Stardew Valley," and then people will probably think that Eric's developing it.
Yeah, there have been a few people confused about that. Eric's not involved on the project. It is just really heavily inspired by sort of what we learned from working with Stardew Valley. I don't really want to say any more than that at the moment.
Gotcha. But I mean, because you guys were getting into the code of Stardew Valley, clearly it rubs off on you and you learned some good ideas from a brilliant game that naturally will feed in the other thing. And Baroni's cool with that. Awesome. Cool. Yeah. What else do you guys have coming up in your future? What's Wargroove looking like at this point?
Wargroove's coming along really well. It seems to have gone over really well at PAX. We're looking at Q1 of 2018 for release. And yeah.
Right on. And that's the Advance Wars style game, but more like of a medieval tone, is that right?
Yeah. There are also like skeletons, kind of different factions. It's kind of like a medieval fantasy tone. I don't think there were skeleton warriors in medieval times. I could be wrong, though.
Yeah, I'm not quite familiar, but I don't think so. That's cool. I think there's a crazy demand for that style of game, especially on the Switch. I mean, I think people are going to eat it up if it's playing well, right? It's doing well?
Yeah, okay. I hope so.
Okay, you hope it's going to be a good game. Cool. What don't we know about Chucklefish? What message would you like to get out there? You think are there misconceptions about the studio at this point?
I don't know. We didn't create Stardew Valley. It was Concern Dave. I don't think so. I don't really think so.
Yeah. What's the office vibe like?
With the vibe like at the office?
Yeah. What's the culture of Chucklefish like for you?
It's pretty casual. Like a lot of people walk around in their socks. I have a foot hammock under my desk. Like it's a hammock for your feet. I don't know why that's like the vibe that I immediately go to, but there are a couple of dogs sometimes. That's pretty good.
So it's a foot and dog based culture overall within Chucklefish.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Makes total sense. Well, you guys have had an exciting history, and it seems like you have a really, really exciting future. So we're excited to see what games you guys turn out. I think fans are going to find a lot to love coming in the future.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks again for having me on.
Thank you so much for watching this excerpt from the Game Informer Show podcast. You can subscribe to the audio version and listen to new episodes airing every Thursday. We cover big games on the horizon, games that we've just reviewed. We have long-form developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So check it out every Thursday.